All right, folks. So today on the news docket, as a week recap for the week of video game news, we're going to be talking about the Tomb Raider Catalyst delay. We've got Ubisoft and Sega's take on ditching game discs. Miyamoto defending remakes. Xbox employees saying Game Pass was a bad idea. And Kojima talking about the context in which he wants his existence to come to a conclusion, let's say. So we'll go through that and I'll give you my takes on it. So yeah, let's get cracking. If you are watching this on YouTube, this is a VOD of a stream I did on Friday, and I will be doing hopefully regularly on Friday. So if you have an interest in contributing and providing your own two takes and having me react to some of your own opinions, join me on Twitch. If you're on Twitch right now, hello. You can see me and you can type in the chat. How you feeling? All right, let's get cracking with the first story. Tomb Raider Catalyst quietly delayed to 2028. So out of nowhere, second major Tomb Raider game, Catalyst, from developer Crystal Dynamics, has been stealthily delayed by Amazon Game Studios. Lengthy interview with Game Business happened where Amazon Games boss Jeff Gattis mentioned that Tomb Raider Catalyst would duck its 2027 Windows release instead of releasing on 2028. So the interesting thing about this is it was just kind of like sneakily dropped, which I think it happens fairly often. And it's not, it's more common than you might imagine, but it is kind of one of those things where if you do it like that, you're kind of giving people a reason to be suspicious about what's going on, if you get what I mean. I feel like even if it's like, if GTA can come out and be like, hey, everyone, we're delayed. I feel like that's a good enough indicator that you should probably be upfront with it. But the thing that's really interesting is the reason that they seem to have provided for why they want to delay it. It appears that the reason for this delay, at least according to Gattis, is to allow Amazon Game Studios to focus on bolstering its streaming service, Luna. That way, when Catalyst does come out, people will associate Luna with Tomb Raider. This is the quote. Ultimately, we want to build an identity with Luna where we have a content portfolio that resonates with people, where they think, oh gosh, that place has the Tomb Raider game and maybe Bond, and they have these other things. Gattis said, and that takes time to go build. But for us to be the platform we want to be and the one we believe we can be, you very much have to have original content. Okay, so that's interesting. I think taking a step back and just looking at the actual delay itself, I'm not too mad about it because it does mean that we're not getting like, they're spacing out the two Tomb Raider games. So they have the other Tomb Raider, almost the Tomb Raider 1 remake coming out. And then now with this delay, we have a separate Tomb Raider game that's going to come out much later. Not too fussed about it. I do think that delaying it because you want to bolster Amazon Luna as a service is kind of a fool's errand for me. I think that obviously Amazon has the ambition of making a space for itself in the video game industry. And I'm not saying it's incapable of doing that. I think structurally and in technology wise, it can do that. I think that the problem they have now is in a large way, a PR battle. Amazon Luna has already launched, right? And they made a big splash about it launching. They put a lot of effort, marketing money, PR into raising awareness around that. And in response to that, people generally didn't care. Like it's not like it became the next big thing. It became just one of a number of cloud services that people have an option to play games on, and of the many out there, it's like near the bottom. Before that is like you can stream on Xbox, you can stream on PlayStation. I think Nvidia has some. Luna is pretty far down. So effectively, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And so far, I don't think that Amazon Luna made a good impression. And I hate to say it, but this is a cutthroat world where people are set in their ways, and for you to truly disrupt how they play games or to have them come to whatever service you're offering, you need to come out swinging, you need to make a big splash, and you need to kind of sustain that. this is kind of like they floundered and now they're trying to revive Luna to a degree, and they now have to also pitch it to people over again. I think my issue with this is like, I don't think people, you can try it. I don't think people care about Luna. I don't think people will care about Luna ever. So putting your Tomb Raider game behind a objective like that feels a bit wild. At the same time, it could just be a way of kind of offsetting the perception, whether it's like, you know, shareholders, whatever it may be, public perception around it. So if you just said we're delaying Tomb Raider, again, people might start thinking about what could be the problem, and it's like, oh, is it going to be bad game? Is there something more development? If you put, oh, we have this objective where we want it to be a big deal on Luna in front of it, you kind of create a little shield that most of us will see through, but people who are like maybe not as savvy around the day-to-day of video games and not paying attention, people, shareholder types basically, they might look at that and go, oh, that's great. I'm into that. It's cloud stuff. It's making, you know, it's a business decision. Great. And that kind of works out in their favor. So I think it's a kind of weird one, but I hope that Amazon isn't going to try and hook all its Luna ambitions into every single game that it kind of now works on. Like they mentioned Bond in there, they don't need that. But I think in the long term, Amazon is going to have to figure out a way to be in the video game space if they're really desperate to be in here and really going to drive that objective forward. They're going to have to figure something else out beyond Luna, because I don't think Luna's got much coming for it in terms of interest. In the chat, Cameron Kennedy is saying, I think even the people who are open to cloud streaming don't care about Luna or care about Luna. Yeah, I think Luna, I assume you mean don't care about Luna. But yeah, like I said, it's like not at the top of the pecking order when it comes to different, you know, cloud services. So that's that one. Next story from this week, we have Ubisoft boss has hot take on Sony killing game discs. Yves Guillemot believes that Sony's plan to kill game disc production in January 2028 could have some benefits for the gaming industry. Speaking during a recent investor QA, that's important. You know what context, you know who his audience is when he says this stuff. It is investors. Guillemot expressed his opinion that the PS5 console market could emulate PC gaming, which has been an overwhelmingly digital-only scene since the rise of Steam, and the hardware costs could come down as a result. Big doubt button pressed there. What we saw in the PC is that it helped to grow the market, Guillemot said. There's also some pressure for the future on the cost of machines, and being able to be only digital will help to have a more accessible machine, I would say. There are pluses and minuses, etc., etc. I'm not convinced by that. Obviously, this is someone who has a vested interest in this succeeding, because even though Sony is like leading the charge, all the publishers will benefit from Sony scrapping discs, because that means they don't have to print discs, which means, you know, it's less of a cost on them. Ultimately, they probably get a bigger piece of the pie. I think the kind of key part that I want to discuss is the bit where he says it could have a positive impact on the PC, in a PC style where Steam came along and suddenly everyone was playing digital games. There is someone in my comments for my latest video about owning games and why it's important to me as a person said, effectively the sentiment was, I don't know why people are getting, you know, so weird about this. Steam has been around for ages and people have been playing games digitally and you don't own those. And that, I think, is a fair point to bring up, but I think it dismisses a bunch of factors that don't easily translate over to consoles, especially the PlayStation 5. The first thing about it is the kind of adoption of digital was tied in many ways to the phasing out of optical disc drives in PCs. So as time went on, like now you look at a gaming PC, it does not have a disk drive. It's very rare to have a disk drive now. So that had a big part to play in the adoption of digital, because if you are a PC gamer, you are naturally in a position where it's like, okay, well, I don't have a disc to put in, so I don't really care. And it was a more gradual thing. You know, the transition from disc to digital was very, very slow. It was almost like lobster in the pot, you know, kind of like they don't feel the temperature. They don't feel that they're getting boiled. That's the kind of approach that Steam almost took to it. So I think that's a big part of it. And the other thing is the company that does it has spent years and years and years kind of earning the trust of the audience. Valve is not a perfect company. I won't for a second act like they're a good corporation. They care about you. All corporations ultimately have a objective that doesn't always take into account people. But what we can say is Valve has a number of good consumer practices and has, for the most part, been pretty solid on how it treats digital games. Games have been pulled from the service, but I can't think of any major ones that caused an issue, or I certainly can't think of it happening at a scale or frequency where the quantity of games being pulled kind of galvanized a backlash towards it. So they've kind of earned the benefit of the doubt by doing that. And the other thing is they have a bunch of other mechanisms on their platform that is conducive to making people feel like they still have control over the game that they have purchased. I think a big one in doing that is the ability to share those games. So you have Steam Family Share, you can add a few people onto your account, and or anyone who's attached to that account then can play those games. So it's not a physical game, but that does a lot in the mind and the perception of this product that you have purchased and don't have a physical version of, to kind of make people feel good about it. And then on top of that, fundamentally, I think there is a massive distinction between digital on PC and I would say digital on other platforms, more modern platforms like mobile, and even like handheld PCs and console gaming. There is a perception in what console gaming is, and it's going to take years and years and years before you can break the attachment of console games and physical discs. I know we've come a long way and the digital numbers speak for themselves, but it's not taken for granted, and it's not taken as the default anymore, where it is very much on PC. I think people will still expect the option to play games, and it's not the norm right now. Maybe it will be once people, take the hits for a few years and release some consoles that don't have a disc drive, and eventually people will get over it. But I think that's going to take a long, long time. So I don't know if that's, and I certainly don't believe that it's going to have a effect on the console market that is good for the consumer. It's probably more weighted towards it being good for the people who are making money off games, the publishers, the platform holders, not necessarily developers, but to some degree, those developers. We know that without a physical version, they are in control of how much things cost, when you're able to access it, how you're able to access it, whether you're online and offline. That's another thing that Steam does well. You can play games offline. So I don't believe they've got a hell of a task convincing people that console games can be a digital only device. Look at how people responded to the Xbox One, and the all digital kind of like set-top box approach of that. I don't think we're that far away from that reaction still. So I wouldn't count on this being oh yeah, this is great. I would love to. Everyone's saying like, oh, that's great. Yeah, we're gonna get right behind this. Creed in the chat says, feels like it will always be a novelty. Casuals will never have the interest to make it profitable, and hardcore gamers will probably never take it seriously. Exactly. From both demographics, you have skepticism and an almost instinctive and visceral reaction to taking that option away. Even if they don't use it, the idea that physical discs are going away isn't as like a thing that people are okay with as much as these executives seem to indicate. Wasn't Ubisoft also trying to fight against stop killing games? I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Again, they have every reason to try and move towards a digital future. They have their own platform. They have Ubisoft Connect, and the thinking probably is, to some degree, a growth in PC digital gaming. Digital gaming means that they are able to get a bigger piece of the pie, and it normalizes their own service. You know, PS5 and Xbox Series X, as far as I know, they don't have Ubisoft Connect as a app on there, but they are hooked into Ubisoft's ecosystem as well. So they'll get a knock-on benefit. And Skodiak1 says the lack of a drive doesn't seem to bring down the price, referring to the PCs. Yes, the lack of a drive never changed how much a PC cost very much at all. In fact, they either stayed the same price or they got more expensive. CD drives were just phased out as USB technology and other forms of data delivery became more effective and also more understood, and the adoption rate was higher. As a PC gamer that only dabbles with consoles, this is a good perspective. Okay, cool, great, thank you. Gene Jacket says, also worth pointing out that when even if a game gets delisted on PC, it's PC. There's still a way to play it. On consoles, the current ones at least, that isn't an option. That's true. People are very savvy about figuring out how to protect their games that they purchase, even when the intention from the people who are holding that platform isn't there. The other thing is, like, on PC, there are still options, right? Like, you have better options, like GOG, Good Old Games. They just allow you to download an EXE, and you keep that. So that, again, is a indicator, or is a way that the audience can be made to feel like they still have some ownership over it. That just isn't the case on consoles, and it probably won't be. So I don't think that is going to go down smoothly with people. But like we said, Guillemot, naturally, as the CEO of a company, has his own ulterior motive. So nah, mate, try again next time. All right, next story from the week. We have GTA 6 is the first game I've seen with a best before date, which is wild. We're about 4 months from the launch of the biggest game of the year, Grand Theft Auto 6. The hype is no doubt through the roof, but if you're in Japan, you'll need to turn that excitement into immediate action, because you'll have a limited amount of time to redeem the code that comes in the game box. So on the Rockstar Games support page, Japanese gamers are it says we will have 170 days to use the code or it'll expire. The official wording is as follows. Product codes in Japan will expire 170 days after the issuance date, which is the launch date, November 19th, due to regional regulations. So I'm going to break that down into as simple a way as possible, because first time I heard it, I was like, that sounds so stupid that it can't be real. I must be misremembering it. But yeah, it means that you purchase a game, you're getting a digital code for it. You have 170 days to use that code, and if you don't use it within that time, it's gone. It expires. It rots. It's that part of the server becomes stinky, smelly. It starts growing mold, and you can't use it anymore. You gotta chuck it away. I don't know what regional regulations that Rockstar is referring to when they say that is the reason that it needs to expire, but I do not buy that one bit. There is some wild nonsense happening behind the scenes, and it's weird that it's only in Japan. Why is it just in Japan? It's a very strange thing. It could be that they are trying to figure out a way of not reselling the games, but again, it's already a digital item. Like, who cares if they use it? Maybe this is a specific thing for GTA only, where they're like, we expect there to be a shortage in the availability of GTA 6, and what we don't want is scalping. We don't want people to buy the game, and then when it's difficult to get the game, go on eBay or whatever reseller you have, and then crank up the cost of it. Because the only way you can do that is if you don't use the code. And if you are buying it in massive, batches and just hoarding it, then I imagine they're thinking, oh, we'll just invalidate that stock. But I don't think so. Like, that's not a thing. You can't put that into place because it potentially punishes everyone for the actions of a few. Like, figure out something else. If that is the case, figure out a better pipeline. At this point, you know what you're about to release. Probably the biggest game of all time. That just go on Google, type how many people are there on Earth. Take that number and make sure there's 3 times as many copies of GTA in the market. That is my dumb math. Enjoy it. That's how you combat it in my stupid brain. But point being, expect it to be popular. And pulling out this nonsense is wacky as hell. I don't know what the thinking here is. The question is, do I think this will happen elsewhere? So I made this video, it's on my YouTube, about how Rockstar, because of what Rockstar is, their profile, the scale of success anything they do achieves, a lot of companies kind of use them as a timely reference, as a Trojan horse. If you see Rockstar do something and it works out, you have every reason and you have basically precedent to do it. So in that video, I talked about how the price is going up. People are going to buy it. It's going to sell loads. People are definitely going to take a crack at raising the price of games generally to be higher so that it kind of gets closer to what Rockstar is selling GTA 6 for. Because they can just be like, hey, GTA did it. We care about our game as much as they care about GTA, that Nintendo style thing where it's like, we don't want to devalue the cost of our game. Like, we put a lot of hard work and effort in it, so we want to sell it for $100. Whether that actual argument works, I'm skeptical, but at the very least, they'll take a crack at it. So with that thinking, if you then extend that to this, if it happens and it like works, or like there's not much of a fuss about it, I think it's going to happen outside of Japan. Like, I think this could be a test bed. You best believe there's a lot of execs and shareholders looking at this little experiment and going, we need to keep an eye on this and see how this plays out, because this is potentially an opportunity for us to be weirdos on top of the many, many ways we are weirdos already. Matt Mitchell, 45 in the chat, says the timing seems to line up with Japanese regulations around prepaid payment instruments, which apparently apply lighter oversight to anything valid for under 6 months. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. But yeah, it could be. But I just feel like I don't know the ins and outs of Japanese consumers and how they approach it. But how are other industries and other mediums approach? Like, is this happening with DVDs? Is this happening with, other music or other forms of media? It's just a very strange story that I'm keeping an eye on to see how it plays out, but wild stuff happening. All right. Following on from that, we've got Sega saying they won't ditch physical media, but they say digital expansion is viable. Very much in the same kind of vein as what Yves Guillemot says, except this one is like hedging your bets a bit, at least from a PR and a fan response perspective, not completely committing to it and being part of like whatever backlash that could come up. Sega understands the choice and the numbers, but president of Sega says the company remains committed to producing physical media despite the push to an all-digital future. So Shuji Utsumi spoke about how the company needs to be more digitally conscious, and become more global. For Sega, digitalization is an important part of the company's business going forward. When it comes to titles we call full games or consoles and PCs, we believe that a digital shift is crucial, Utsumi told Famitsu. Of course, consoles are important, but the proportion of people who play on PCs is steadily increasing. Even in areas where consoles are not widely available, there are many people who say, I can play it on PC. In order to cultivate that market, we believe it's important to strengthen our digitalization. Okay, this is a similar sentiment to what Yves Guillemot said about in Ubisoft for a lot of the same reasons, except it is sugarcoated. They don't want to be one of the people who catches a stray because they are also getting behind the all digital future, and the anti-consumer backlash is something that they are scared of. I don't know about this. Like, there is, if this is true and this is how you see your business going, you wouldn't care about physical games. So saying like we're committed to physical games, but we really do need to improve our digital strategy and our offerings on digital, that's like, you are clearly making it obvious that you intend to prioritize digital, which is what everyone's doing, because that's where you make more of money on it, because you get to keep a bigger cut. You spend less money on production and distribution. So this, initially, you might see this and be like, good guy, Sega president, won't ditch physical media. But the second clause in this headline is undermining the first. So don't believe on those lies. Nice little reference for people who are nerds, losers like me. That was a quick one. Next story for the weekly recap of hot gaming news. Oh yeah, before we move on to that, Sega can't afford any more negativity with their Gen AI stance. Correct. That is one of the reasons where also I imagine this like mealy mouth approach has been taken. Sega is already didn't they do stuff with like NFTs or some Bitcoin stuff as well? They were one of the companies in Japan that were like, hell yeah, Bitcoin. So they are already, they've stepped on a bunch of rakes. They're sideshow bobbing their way through the video game industry right now. So that is another reason why they are like half-assing that sentiment. Next story, Microsoft bring ads to Xbox in a big new way, promising no gameplay interruptions. So this is another game that kind of wraps into the hellscape, digital hellscape that we are rapidly careening into, in terms of what gaming looks like when the games you play are played digitally and you don't own them. Microsoft has rolled out a test for its free ad-supported version of cloud gaming. Select members of the Xbox Insider program can start testing this out today. As announced by Microsoft, ads play before people get into a session. The ads do not interrupt the gameplay experience like they might do for ads on a TV or movie streaming platform. Sessions are limited to 1 hour per session, at least for now, as part of this early test version that supports games people already own. So right now, Microsoft on a generational, like, shooting yourself in the foot run right now. Like, I can see why you're doing this, but like, why now? Why did you do that now? Like, you have taken multiple L's. Your reputation is in tatters right now. It's not looking good, bruv. Why would you do this? Like, delay this. I mean, I take it as like how desperately they need to turn their fortunes around, and they just hit in every big red button they can. But the fact that people are getting currently in the testing phase, people who opt into it, are getting ads on games they own is crazy. Like, you paid for a game digitally. Before you start playing it, you are gonna get an ad. How can you could not more effectively undermine any goodwill that you're trying to establish, or, convince people so that you can move towards this all digital, no disc future. This is insane. And I guess the end goal is to make it something that's implemented on cloud gaming, which I can see a little more of a use case for that, because you pay that membership, you don't purchase a game, you're just streaming that game. Maybe it works out in your favor if you use the ads, you get a little cheaper or something like that. The thing about this is, one, right now, it says you get one ad before the game is started. That is not going to stay that way. There is no chance it stays that way. If this is a initiative that carries on and they explore it further or they keep it, it is only a matter of time before you are getting an ad halfway through a one-frame link in a Street Fighter game. You chuck that grenade in Call of Duty, then you are getting a Coca-Cola ad. Like, that is the kind of shit that you can expect coming, all right? Sephiroth has got his giant sword, and he's coming down on Aerith, and as he's coming down, My Pillow advert. Casper mattresses. That is the future. That is the future. That is where this is going, okay? Believe it, as my man Naruto would say. Yeah. Melissa says, I'm one hit away from my no-hit Melania fight, and I get an ad. Imagine that. Midway through a Sekiro parry, just ad pops up. And look at the landscape of advertising in America right now. If you are watching sports, if you're watching basketball, this is where my main experience is. Watching basketball, oh my God, the amount of adverts, it makes me want to just punch my TV. Again, as Melissa pointed out in the chat, like, they changed the way football and the World Cup is played for advertising. This is a sport that has been going for so many years, and it hasn't had it never had hydration breaks. But for some reason, we now have hydration breaks for the players when we all know it's just for the adverts. In basketball games, it is insufferable. You will watch an advert, it will go back to the NBA broadcast, and it might be like during a free throw, the commentators will be talking, and then you'll get picture-in-picture an advert. And you're like, what? I just came from an advert. Oh, why am I getting another advert? Sometimes it'll be like, oh, I'm watching NBA Today. I'll watch like 7 adverts. NBA Today will start. Malika Andrews is going to be like, hey, this week we're going to be talking about LeBron James going to the Philadelphia 76ers. Advert. Before the content is even that, you're getting the intro for a segment and then an advert. That is the future we are moving towards. And as multiple people have pointed out, that's how football works. Football games are as long as in like American football, egg ball, CTE ball. That is long as hell because of adverts as well. And it's also like things like halftime show. That's an advert, okay? Maybe it's like entertaining, but it's also an advert. And if you think back to what the objective is for Microsoft, what the CEOs, Asha Sharma and Matt Booty, said in their memo, where at the bottom they were like, we want to entertain 1 billion people a day. Like, this is part of that. Like, they want to expand the way they attract an audience. This is an element of that, where they make it easier to get into games. But also, they want to make as much money as possible. So once they see, there's a meaningful change in the kind of revenue we are generating when we introduce an ad, the next step is put more ads in. One at the start, one at the end. One at the start, one at the middle, one at the end. One at the start, one in between the start and the middle, one in between the middle and the end. And before you know it, you will have like a bunch of adverts, unskippable. And then the next phase is pay an extra bit of money to get the skippable tier. And then you have some services which is like, oh, you paid for the tier that has adverts in it, but you can only have some skipping or something like that. Like Disney Plus or whatever. Like I paid for a subscription to watch X-Men 97, right? I paid my money for a subscription. I'm still getting ads. What? That is the future. That's where this is going. So I don't buy for a second that there's going to be any sort of ethical placement of ads in this. And also, like, you count on the mistakes. Like, you listen to a podcast right now, and 1 minute you are listening to fucking a horrifying retelling of a serial killer that was at loose in America on a reign of terror for 50 years and did the most heinous shit. And then as it comes, and MailChimp advert, Blue Chew. You're like, what's going on? And like, as someone who has worked on a bunch of podcasts and has listened back to my own podcast, the amount of times I've heard like me or people that have been on podcasts mid-thought go into an advert, it's basically the norm now. So there is not going to be restraint on this. Microsoft has already said we need to make a bunch of money. We need to get healthy. We are operating in a way that is not sustainable for ourselves. You know for a fact that the next step, when they introduce the idea of ads, they're not going to be chill with that. They are going to go hard. They are going to go crazy with it. Can't stand nationally televised games. Yep. Exec's going to start directing game devs to put more downtime so they can fit in ads seamlessly. Creed. Yeah, that's a thing that happens in sports, right? Like timeouts and lulls in games, in the way the games are played, to make space for adverts. Like, I don't put it past execs to get into game designers' face and say, like, create these ad moments where we're not disrupting too much, but, you know, it changes the pace or the way the game's designed. Imagine getting an ad after Joel he gets his ass beat with a golf club. Imagine that. Honestly, the more I think about it, the funnier it sounds. So maybe I'm actually in. Who knows? Say that ads won't interrupt gameplay is such bullshit. Yep, agreed. And think about it. How many times has a corporation done the right thing for you and for the consumer? Let me tell you, precisely zero. Right? They're not going to do something in your favor. They're not going to be like, oh, we're just going to do a little bit of this and then move on. We're not going to go crazy with it. It's cool. That's not happening. So that is another dystopian development in this week in games. All right. Next story, we have Mario Dad. Great headline from Levi Winslow over at my home GameSpot.com. Mario Dad Miyamoto says companies prioritizing short-term profit gains feel like a massive failure. Miyamoto coming out spicy. My man woke up on the wrong side of the bed, landed on the floor, opened his eyes. There was a pack of cigarettes there. He picked that shit up, went outside, big drag, picked up his coffee, took a swig, and was like, I'm gonna say some shit. I'm going to say some shit today. I don't care if you think I'm the happy Pikmin guy. I'm going to say some shit. And he did it. Shigeru Miyamoto had some choice words for businesses that put profits over people. Essentially saying it's a shame that the priority always seems to be short-term profit over long-term playability. Wow. I know I just said don't trust corporations, and I still don't trust, even Nintendo, I don't trust them. My man, I bought Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu the other day. That shit is like 1 million years old now for $60. Nintendo has no chill about stuff. Nintendo is not doing anything for the benefit of the people. They're like, I don't care. We don't care. So let's not get crazy with like Miyamoto. The GOAT is, you know, he's on our side. He's probably not. In a recent interview with Famitsu, that was a machine translated by VGC, Miyamoto talked about his son, Mario the Plumber's continued success in the face of companies who regularly chase profit, and pondering just why Mario remains so popular. Miyamoto explained that Nintendo as a company doesn't approach game development from a profit point of view, but rather from one of playability. He cited Pokemon and Splatoon as two franchises that were designed like this because had they been created with maximizing profits in mind instead of creating fun experiences, they would have been fundamentally different games. I think we wouldn't have had. I think that Splatoon wouldn't be as popular as it is now if they weren't somewhat true about that ethos. Like they took a couple cracks at it and built that fan base. Miyamoto then expanded his thoughts about Mario and how that franchise was created with physical movement as the center of the gameplay. Yeah, we get it. He's got a tubby belly. It makes him fun to jump in the air because he does little flips. Nice, nice, nice. So the reason Nintendo enjoys such strong global support is simply that we don't start by asking what's trending now. Instead, we focus on who we're actually doing this for. Who is it that's putting up the money? I really dislike the term depreciation or recouping costs. Hold on, mate. You said that you don't want to depreciate the value of Nintendo games. That's why you don't put them on discount. Makes you think. The people funding these projects are doing it to make a fortune. So why celebrate things like we recouped our investment or short-term profits? To me, if you've burned through the talents of so many people just to achieve that, that feels like a massive failure. He underlined this point, saying that Nintendo's standard practice is what he calls the principle of gameplay. It's the idea that if something is unique and fun to play, it will have a longer lasting impact on a person's life rather than something that came into existence only to satisfy shareholders or line their pockets. We've always focused on creating the best possible product to match the fun gameplay we envision. You have to, like, again, I'm very cynical about companies, but you can read that and then look at Nintendo's body of work and the way they behave and believe it. That is truly how Nintendo approaches it. I've not seen any indication. I can't think of a game that Nintendo has developed and published that felt like a cash grab. Outside of launch games. I don't even think that those are cash grabs even. Those are just like, we'll just get games. Yes, Steel Diver 2, whatever. Like, those are not great games, but I don't see them as games that are like designed for a cash grab, you know? And they are one of the few companies that you can say is honest when they say, you know, we are looking at leaving a lasting impact. And I think he's right. And not just does that give longevity to Mario as a IP, it also does build trust from consumers. Like, you know that if there's a trend coming up that is upsetting or is like destabilizing, you know that Nintendo is probably not going to do it. We didn't hear Nintendo say one word about Bitcoin, NFTs, games as a service, that kind of stuff. It just did not do it. Or if it did it, it wasn't to the extent where anyone took it seriously or even like became a big thing that people talked about. And you have to respect that. You got to respect that from Nintendo. They are exemplary in that regard. But it's an example that no one is following because I think it's, and I wouldn't even say like, oh, it's a regional thing where, you know, the West is so capitalism pilled that they do, you know, the nasty shit to get it done instead of listening to what Mario Dad has to say. But other companies in Japan have done it. Sega's done it. I guess maybe Bandai, I think I have done it. There's companies in Japan that have done that kind of thing. I think it genuinely is it's a function of how that company was built from the bottom up. And it's a function of how that company is able, the people in charge are able to take a step back, look at what is happening, and make a decision that moves them towards guaranteeing longevity of the company. Whether that's raising the salary of the developers, or it's doing something like turning down trends that will jack up share prices or share value and please a certain group of executives. They just are avoiding that stuff. And it's one of the reasons why Nintendo is just like drama-free cruising. Like, you don't find things where it's stories about Nintendo struggling. Like, they do the wackiest shit all the time, right? The Wii U was a massive L. Did you see any after that people being like, "Oh my god, Nintendo's in trouble. They just made a whole console. No one cares. It kind of sucks. People aren't buying it that much." No, they just kept it pushing, went on to the next thing, and tried something else, and it worked. That is like a function of them doing the smart thing up until that point. They don't chase trends. They do what they think is right, and it pays. It pays dividends for them. They always make decisions that feed into and embody their core ethos, instead of trying to put smiles on faces of rich people who just want to be more rich. So shout out to him for getting up and being like, I'm gonna say some shit. People like Mario because he's Italian American from New Jersey, and everyone likes The Sopranos. I believe it. I believe it. I would love to see some Tony Soprano skins on Mario, or like some crossover happening. Building a skill base with devs is so important. Nintendo doesn't just make some of the best games ever by luck. In turn, they make tons of money from them. Yeah, true. That's why Nintendo doesn't focus on depreciation. Their game prices never change. They'll make their money eventually because they're never on sale. Yep, that's true. Switch 2 Welcome Tour as an idea felt like a cash grab, but I don't even think Nintendo thought anyone would seriously buy it. Maybe there was a couple games in the like motion era as well that were kind of like that, but even those games, they felt like a attempt to give me a demand quickly. It wasn't a attempt to like, follow a trend. It was them going like, oh, people really love these shake the remote games. Can we get more of those out and make them like good if we can, or decent at the very least? Snippet clips was fun. So yeah. But generally I think Nintendo is doing well. Another Shigeru Miyamoto joint. Like I said, he's on his second cigarette now. He's got his second coffee. And he's like, I'm going to defend remakes. It's my time. Miyamoto, the creator of Mario and The Legend of Zelda, has spoken up to defend remakes. A lot of people embrace and enjoy remakes, while others say developers should instead spend more time and resources on entirely new games. Miyamoto, for his part, said remakes are good, actually, because a lot of people might have missed out on a game when it was originally released. Beyond that, commercial success of a remake can lead to additional resources that a company can use to put into new projects, Miyamoto said. Some people might say there are a lot of remakes, but after 5 years, a lot of people have outgrown games and stopped playing them. Young people today don't have the opportunity to play games from 10 years ago, so remaking them to be more playable and releasing them again is a good way to meet the demand, he told Famitsu, translated by Nintendo Everything. Letting people know the original game also leads to future developments, so we've been actively pursuing that recently. So I think that Miyamoto, if you can tell Miyazaki this, then I'll buy every Nintendo game ever. Yeah, man. How about that Bloodborne remake? So I think Miyamoto is talking about a different kind of remake. And I think his idea of a remake, it's in line with the sentiment that he's shared here. So there's two kinds of remakes. There's the kind of remake that he and Nintendo are doing right now, which is Ocarina of Time remake, right? That is from multiple generations ago on a console that, is difficult to get now. The game is still available, right? You can still play that game in various ways. But again, it comes with all the idiosyncrasies of a game made at that time. Not much is done to it beyond upraising it, making it sharper, maybe adjusting the controls for modern controllers. But other than that, it's essentially the same game. It's not super appealing to people other than, us who have played the original and will want to experience that nostalgia, or people have like a curiosity and are willing to go to it. It doesn't have the shiny sheen of a modern game that is going to attract a new audience or get people who ordinarily aren't going to play. Like I didn't play the Ocarina of Time remake on 3DS that much because I just was like, no, I'm good, man. I played it, but I'm interested in this, and that's the kind of remake strategy you can get behind. They're going back and looking at games that are deserving of remakes and will genuinely help make that game, that IP, stronger, and there's a purpose for it. Another company that has done this, I think, well, is Capcom. Those remakes of the Resident Evil games, they are meaningful differences. Like, I think Resident Evil 2 Remake is one of the best games ever made. That was a game that you could look at and be like, yeah, I think that deserves a remake. I don't think that many people would say they were just phoning it in with that one. I think the only one of those that you could say that for is 3, but 3 is a kind of a weird game anyway. The fact that they did Resident Evil 4 Remake is wild, given that it's, relatively speaking, more recent. But even then, it's an incredible remake. Silent Hill 2 Remake, Thick Duvet says. Yes, an incredible remake. So these are games deserving of a remake. There's a genuine use case for it, and it has beneficial impact on the company, the IP, and it feels valuable to have it out there. The kind of remakes that are happening that he's talking about, people shouldn't be doing, is the kind that, I'm gonna be honest with it, like, why did we need to have a Black Flag remake? I'm not mad at it. Like, it's not for me. I can avoid it. But like, that didn't come out long ago. Like, that's a recent game. That's crazy. Like, that game did not need a remake. That game was remade because Ubisoft, kind of the Assassin's Creed franchise, is in a weird place. And they know that people always talk about Black Flag being their favorite one, right? They know that Shachel says they needed it. Ubisoft needed it. Yes, Ubisoft needed that. That was for their bottom line, their share value, their own money, their bank account. It wasn't serving a function for the culture of games or improving a game so that people can relive it in new ways. That was just cold, hard cash. That didn't need to be remade. And there's similar games like that I'm blanking on, that just, even when the HD remix stuff, the HD stuff, that era came out, where it was like, we're just going to compile all these games in HD on one disc and chuck it out, fart it out. That era was similar, where it's like, that wasn't there to improve games or to give older games a new lease on life. It was to make money. So I understand what Miyamoto is saying, and I can get behind what he's saying when you think about the first category. Like, that does make sense. Unfortunately for him, a lot of developers and publishers aren't in that same space. They are doing it to cash in on money as an easy way to put another game out there that people have a good chance of buying. So yeah. Next major story for this week comes from analysts talking about killing physical games, dooming brick and mortar stores. This will be a quick one. No shit, Sherlock. I mean, it's Michael Pachter. Michael Pachter's a smart person. It's fine, but maybe this is one of those like no shit Sherlock moments. Like, it's been doing that for a really long time. The only reason I put this on here is, one, GameStop man the other day was like, yeah, we don't care about physical games. It's not really our business. That's all you need to know. Like, these GameStop, and when I was in the UK, I worked at Game, which is, I guess, the British equivalent of GameStop. But while I was there, we were selling albums for like JLS and like music albums, Leona Lewis. That is where people are moving now. Like, these GameStops and that kind of stuff, they have diversified their business where they're essentially Funko Pop. They're slinging Funko Pops now. Like, games is not much of a lot of these businesses. And the places where you consistently can find games, like it's like a Walmart, Target, those kind of places where they have a whole other selection of items to buoy their business, So this is unsurprising at all. And not only is it unsurprising, like, it's very obvious, like, it's been happening for ages. And based on GameSpot CEO man's quote from over there, is even they don't care about it. Like, if this is meant to evoke some sort of sad, like, oh man, I used to love when I go to brick and mortar stores, it's not going to happen, because the CEO of the biggest brick and mortar store came out and was like, we don't give a fuck. So why should anyone care? But another example of us spiraling into a digital future where we own nothing and nobody cares. But if you like Funko Pops, oh boy, go to GameStop.com or GameStop.brickandmortar. When I got my Switch 2, Melissa says, my GameStop was set up for card tournaments. They're really going in on trading card movements. Yeah, so that's what these brick and mortar retail stores are now. They just are they are facilitating the latest trend. What is the biggest trend? Like right now they're moving into Magic the Gathering, tabletop, that kind of stuff. The next thing, who knows what it's going to be? Pogs comes back. If Pogs made a triumphant comeback and everyone was out there slamming Pogs again, GameStop overnight would become #1 Pog seller in the world. You know what I'm saying? If yo-yos make a comeback, if people are doing walk the dog on the streets, if there's walk the dog streams on Twitch, GameStop is going full yo-yo division. Like they're making yo-yos, whatever. Like that's the business model now. The business model for stuff like GameSpot is just keep pivoting and be relevant to whatever is there, which I don't know if that's a viable strategy given how many times you need to reorient an entire business. But I imagine they've got good at it given how many times they've like spun in different directions in completely different, genres of item to sell. Goods. So brick and mortar is dead, I think. Like there's nothing. The traditional brick and mortar video game stores are gone. It's Jova. This kind of news story, obviously, probably worth saying, but also no shit, Sherlock. We know. Next story comes from another Microsoft story. This is another one where it's like, no shit, Sherlock, kind of, because Game Pass was a good idea, but it didn't work. Forza Horizon 5 creative director says. Forza Horizon 5 creative director Mike Brown has weighed in with his thoughts on the situation at Xbox currently. I don't believe he's there anymore. I think he's gone somewhere else now. Was he working? Is he the one that was working on the racing game that Amazon had for a bit? I forgot the name of it. Clutch, I think it was called. But I think that might be him. But he said he's speaking to MinMax, which was then reported by Kotaku, saying that Game Pass, simply put, was not able to attract enough subscribers to make it viable as a business. And this contributed to pain Xbox is going through today. After all, we recently found out that Microsoft was hoping to have 77 million subscribers by now, but the number is actually only around 30 million. That's actually really just sad because now we're going to see studios getting shut down or spun off, he told MinMax. Loads of people are going to lose their jobs, and that is honestly just a result of a well-meaning player-focused concept of Xbox Game Pass not quite landing. And I think it's just a real shame. On the one hand, I don't know, well-meaning, I'm not so sure about. Like, I these kind of decisions, back then, you could look at Phil Spencer bringing Game Pass in and go, Phil Spencer seems like he likes games. Maybe this is a well-meaning kind of like strategy, and maybe there is a future in having the Netflix of games service. But I don't think it's entirely well-meaning. I think it's an attempt to find a new niche in the market that hopefully will blow up in a big way and you can own it. But also, did anyone think this is anything but a Hail Mary? Like, the Xbox is behind every other competing platform holder. It is in third place. And for a while now, they had just been throwing Hail Mary after Hail Mary. And this was one of them. And when you're throwing Hail Marys in this way, you shouldn't be surprised when it doesn't really hit the mark and you fumble it and it's just, there's consequences of it. The sad thing is it's a Hail Mary that they just leaned into so hard. And they could argue, like, if we didn't go all in on it and really put everything we have towards it, there's a chance that we wouldn't have been giving it the best opportunity and creating the best conditions for it to survive, which I could see you making that argument. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge that when you do that and you go that hard, you are also risking a bunch of things, namely studios, people, jobs, losses, if it flops. And that's exactly what happened. Like, it flopped, and the people who made those decisions are fine. They'll be fine, right? But the developers now, as we've seen in the last few months, it's impacting them in a big way. They are losing jobs, or they are being made independent, hopefully. Some of them, we have no idea. We still, I believe, don't know the fate of what's going to happen with Arcane. But you shouldn't be surprised that this is happening. And I feel like the ad thing is another one of these. It's another Hail Mary. Like, it is, and there's no good outcome for it. If it works, like I said, welcome to ad hell. If it doesn't work, more people are probably going to lose their job, and it's going to impact Xbox as a business even further. So it is completely unsurprising. But in addition to the Forza Horizon 5 director talking about it, apparently, like, people within Microsoft are also super vocal about how shitty it was. The biggest critics of Xbox Game Pass may be inside Xbox. Game Pass used to be held as the best deal in gaming, and it was for a while. Honestly, it was. But I think once the kind of like stakes started to come into play, and we started to realize, oh wait, there's way more riding on this being a success, and the success metrics are insane. That's when I was like, oh man. And then it rapidly stopped being the best, deal in gaming. How long do we think Satya gave Asha to turn things around? I don't know, honestly. Maybe like a few years, but I'm not 100% sure that Asha's going to be around for like more than a couple years. Like, it's such a cutthroat business right now. She might, they might deem her not doing a good enough job and move on, or she might not even be there to do that job. She might not be there to rescue Xbox. She might be there to make Xbox leaner, which is what just happened, right? Like, many people lost their jobs. Studios are being cut loose. That might have been one of the functions that she was put there to do. And if that is the case, maybe she's going to do that maybe a couple more times and then bounce. But that's just like lack of kind of real clarity around what the objective is. But I don't know how long she's going to be there. There are a lot of people, back to the story, there are a lot of people out there in studio leadership within Xbox who absolutely detest Game Pass. Yikes. They think it has destroyed the value of their games, think it has taken away from the value of all games in general, and has been a detriment to the games industry in those people's view because of how it devalues games. This is coming from Jason Schreier on the Triple Click podcast. One Take Jason, One Take Schreier. I think that something that kind of like comes to mind is I think about games that were put on Game Pass. What was the name of the Double Fine game about the lighthouse? I've got such a bad memory. Double Fine game. Keeper. Yeah, Keeper. I think about that game, and what would it be like if it wasn't a immediately on Game Pass product? I think the thing that it didn't, there was no awareness around that game, right? Like it was just out one day. It had like a couple of segments in various showcases, but I feel like for me and a lot of people that I saw reacting to it, it just felt like it popped out of nowhere. That's because like it just didn't have a traditional marketing push. And I think that's the one thing that maybe isn't accounted for as much. I would love to see like a comparison and also like a change in, if there was a change in attitude. But for a lot of these games, the marketing became it's on Game Pass. Instead of marketing the game, the marketing for that game became the marketing of Game Pass. So there's not really awareness around what that game is, and it just gets buried under the constant revolving door of Game Pass coming in, going out. Like it just feels like another game. There wasn't a big push around awareness of this being from the people that made Psychonauts, from the people that made Grim Fandango or whatever. This is Double Fine. It just didn't have like adverts or billboards, which I'm not saying that a game like that would, but it didn't have much either in any other respect. I even remember there not being that many preview events for it. For example, like it was an incredible game, really great game. And Scodiax1 says, I want to play that game, and you should. It's great. It's a great game, but they just did not put any effort into the raising awareness around that game and that game only, instead of just bundling it into Game Pass and saying this new game is out on Game Pass. And I feel like that happens a lot. There's a type of game that you can get away with that. Like, you don't need to. I mean, it is going to happen, but like, you don't need to go crazy with the marketing of Call of Duty. You don't need to give it its own time in the spotlight. But other games you can just throw Call of Duty into Game Pass and go like, here's Call of Duty, here's man shooting gun, everybody get down, grenade, etc., etc. Call of Duty, new one available on Game Pass. 20 seconds, whatever. That's fine. People don't need to be told what Call of Duty is. They get it. It's too big to fail at this point. But for stuff like Keeper, you can't pull that shit. You can't give them like 10 seconds or like a minute on a showcase full of 30 other games and putting the entire marketing, the weight of the burden of marketing, having that gated behind Game Pass advertisements, I think did that game so dirty. It sucks. But he's right. Like, the people who are quietly whispering to each other like, this sucks, Game Pass sucks, they're right. Like, there is a devaluing and at least a devaluing in perception and awareness around those games. Like, there's so many games that came out on Game Pass that I just did not know were coming. I know it just popped up one day and I was like, oh, no. The people need to plan for games. People need to think about, time and money and community culture stuff, where like, get some friends involved, whatever. They need to prepare for games. If you just drop it on them, they're going to look at it and be like, what the is this? Anyways, I'm going to go play Call of Duty. So they're right. I think if they wanted a successful subscription for Game Pass, it should have been stuck to AAA games only, COD and Gears and Halo and FIFA. I agree. But then it just doesn't grow, I think. Like, the growth becomes stagnant if they just stick to certain games. But like, on the other end of the spectrum, when they went for everything, they basically had nothing. It's that kind of like paralyzed choice kind of thing, choice paralysis that comes from an abundance of options. All right, final story for this week's recap. Hideo Kojima reveals how he wants to go out. Which, why are you saying this, man? Like, in the age of manifesting, don't be saying shit like this. That's crazy. Like, what are you doing, bro? Like, oh man, what a wild thing to just put out there. Writer-director Hideo Kojima, famous for creating Metal Gear and Death Stranding, and Boktai, thank you. And Zone of the Enders, thank you. Appreciate it. He's commented on how he would like to, I can't say this because I'll get like the algo will get me. How he would like to gracefully depart from this life. How he would like to bring his existence to a definite, irreversible close. In a recent event, Kojima said he would like to undergo that process in a movie theater, and he even knows when exactly he'd like it to happen. I like the time before the movie starts best. Enter the movie theater, the lights turn off, the commercials and trailers play, then just before the movie starts is when I want to go. It's a morbid comment, but it's not altogether what that is one of the wildest things I've ever heard from this man, and he has said some wild stuff in his time. But you got the margin for error there. You could end up with I don't know what is this, just the vibe, like movie starting vibe, like, and how is it happening? Is it just like heart attack, or is it like poison pill? Like, what happens if the lights go down and your final seconds are happening? You can feel it. You can feel it leaving, and then the fucking Nicole Kidman thing comes up, because that shit pops up when you least expect it. The amount of times I've been watching a movie and I've been like, right, that dip to black means the movie is starting. And then Nicole Kidman shows up and she's like, we come to theaters because it makes us feel good about life, and heartbreak feels great in a shithole like this. That kind of shit happens. What happens then? Like, the last thing you see is Nicole Kidman telling you that theaters are great as you're leaving. What? That's wild. And also, like, AMC, whatever, they like to just chuck one of those, there's still time to get a Diet Coke and a popcorn. Find our concession stands outside. Like, they will chuck one of those when you least expect it. Like, seconds before a movie's about to start. It will just, like, go into that, and you're like, what the I thought the movie was going to happen. Imagine going out, being told that you still have time to buy a Pepsi. The different ways this could go wrong is wild. Yeah, yeah. Thick duvet. Hideo Kojima's eyes are closing. It's blurring. It's, his vision is starting to fade away. His heart is slowing. His muscles are starting to relax. And all he hears is a special thank you to our AMC A-lister stub members. What? Imagine that. Damn. That would just be the worst way to go, man. Also, what movie are you picking? You watch so many movies. Like, what if you're just watching some shit movies at that time? Like, what if you're watching Cats? Do you get to pick the movie? Or do you, like, is this a service where you can, like, have special screenings? Specifically so you can shuffle off this Mortal Coil? The new Minions movie? Yes, Melissa, you want to go out? Imagine the last thing you see is Chris Pratt. It could be so much worse. I want to go out. I want to go out watching Batman versus Superman, Justice League actually. The bit where she goes, Kal-El, no. That's when I want to go. Like, the moment that happens, just take me out, because I don't want to experience anything like that ever again. That is the worst horror you can inflict on someone, so I'm ready to leave. It's just shout out to Kojima for just saying wild stuff like this. That's why we love him, and we hope that he continues to do the same. All right, that brings to a close the recap for the big stories of this week. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you're watching on YouTube, again, this is a thing. This is a stream that I'm going to be doing regularly. So if you want to catch it live, come on Fridays to twitch.tv/TamoorH. And usually I'm aiming for like 5:30 p.m. PT. But if you want to just leave it at, VODs, please do. If you're watching a VOD, please do hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't. And share it. I'm trying to juice those numbers, baby. And if you're here on Twitch with me right now, nice.